Will Jaime Lannister once again be the Kingslayer or the Queenslayer? And better yet, will he get a fun sitcom spin-off? I have answers. I have answers on both of those things
Okay,
because
well, I want to find out.
Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, which I hope is the correct pronunciation of his name,
I think it's at least close.
because it's spelled with a J, and I wish I knew how to pronounce it, and I should at this point. It's pretty embarrassing that I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, he spoke to the New York Times about the finale, which left us on a really weird moment where Cersei takes the throne. She gives a weird look to Jaime. Jaime looks at her oddly. I can't read her look, but I think I can read his look.
I think I can read both.
What is Cersei's look?
I think that Cersei has an incredibly complicated mix of emotions. She's obviously triumphant. On some level, she's gotten what she's wanted, but she has had to accept the price that she'll pay to get that, knowing that what the witch woman predicted decades ago would actually come true. She seemed to be relatively unaffected externally by the death of Tommen, perhaps because she knew it was going to happen. Many people are saying that when she was dressing at the beginning of the episode, it wasn't that she was dressing for blowing up the Sept. She was dressing for her coronation. Before Tommen even died.
I thought she was dressing for mourning.
Maybe. But she seemed to already have accepted that Tommen wouldn't make it through this event. I don't know if I believe that necessarily.
I think she was upset that Tommen died. Like, that was
She didn't seem too overly affected by it. I think that she has been stripped of all of her humanity, all of the good emotions she had tied to both Jaime and the kids. And so I think that she now has what she wants, but it isn't at all what she thought she wanted. And I think that she sees Jaime very differently.
Does she?
I don't think she sees him like is in love and thinks, oh, we're finally going to be able to be together.
He's all that she has left, though.
She has nothing left.
She wanted to protect her children. They're all gone. And they did have that scene where they went, fuck everyone who isn't us. And that was making out. That's what I think making out is.
Never actually done it.
That's my theory. Anyway, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau had something to say about that, about how Jaime feels about Cersei at this point. She was responsible for genocide. She forced their last child to commit suicide. On a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being, this is the moment when you have to leave. I think we're at 99.9, but it's Game of Thrones, so you never know.
Not responsible for genocide, technically.
I don't think it's genocide. I think it's mass murder.
Yeah, it was mass murder, possibly a terrorist attack, I guess. But she's also the established power.
I think that would be considered terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, she certainly was trying to scare off any remnants of the church. I mean, that's the Great Sept, and that's where most of the soldiers are. But that certainly wasn't the entirety of the power of the church. But they're not going to challenge her after this, I imagine.
Well, at this point, she only has herself and Jaime, right?
And a corpse walking around.
A corpse. Sure. Oh, and a giant corpse who failed to stop him from jumping out the window.
Well, didn't even care. I mean, that's what sort of, I think, confirmed to him that it was his mom. I mean, the fact that it's watching him, and then as soon as the explosion happened, it's like, cool, and it walks away.
And he's like, this is my mother. He kind of just takes off the crown, and I feel like that's his suicide note a little bit. Like, I want no part of this.
Yeah.
I don't belong here. And he doesn't. He was a sweet boy and not really the kind of strategic mind that was needed for this.
And somebody pointed this out, and it's so amazing. He had been giving the speech with the sparrow that the crown and the church are the twin pillars of society. And if one crumbles, the other must fall.
That is pretty literal.
One crumbled.
And the other one fell. Oh, my God. What?
That's pretty good. And there's even a lot of long shots looking out from the Red Keep into the city that have two pillars in the middle of the frame.
That's some clever directing, y'all. So I also like the directing with Jon and Sansa both standing on the fort outside. Anyway, if you look at it, it's kind of framing something interesting, which he also talked about in this interview with the New York Times, which is Tommen jumping out of the window kind of closely mirrors Jaime pushing Bran out the window, which is what kicked this all off. I mean, if Bran had gotten out and said what he saw, those 3 children would be dead. Well, those 3 children are dead as of that moment, and now they have everything that they've been working for. I mean, you can argue that all of the strategy and machinations that Cersei and Jaime had worked on would be to protect their children, right, from this secret getting out, and it didn't matter. They're all gone.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of people are thinking when he looks out over the city, when he's riding in with Bronn and the Lannister soldiers, and he sees what happened, I think he has an okay idea of what actually happened.
Like,
and then when he sees her, well, he knows that she did it, and he also knows how she did it. And as people have pointed out, he was willing to totally dishonor himself and kill his king to stop someone from setting wildfire
That's
off
what's
of King's
special about
Landing.
Jaime is he's not nearly as selfish as Tywin or Cersei. I mean, no one really talks about it or thinks that way, but he saved the city by killing the king because he was going to burn
And
them
only Brienne
all.
really knows.
Yeah.
But now the woman that he loves the most in the world did exactly that.
I mean, honor would bind him to do the deed that he's already done
Especially
for the
if
same
she
principles.
gets worse, which she almost certainly will.
She probably will.
And a lot of people I know are really scared about what has happened to Cersei. They think it's interesting, but they're also worried because a lot of people felt that Ramsay became an uninteresting villain once he was pure evil.
I thought so.
Yeah, I thought he was fine. She had some things that made her more of a fully fleshed out character, including her family, the ties to her family, and the
Well,
love
her
of Jaime.
redeeming quality, that was
Yeah,
that.
and now-
And it's gone.
That's gone. And so what is she? Is she just the Mad Queen? That could be an interesting plot device, but it's not going to be as interesting of a character to follow in the last 13 episodes.
Perhaps. Speaking of the end of the series, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau also addressed ideas that there could be a spin-off. Now, George R.R. Martin has talked about maybe a prequel before, the adventures of Dunk and Egg, King Duncan and Aegon, who would eventually move. Okay, it's a prequel. But he responded kind of funnily to the idea of his character getting a spin-off. It would be called The Heartslayer. Yeah, why not?
Jesus.
It has to be a sitcom, though, and it has to have a laugh track. Then I would do it in a heartbeat. I thought we'd have a season where we just did the whole thing in cabaret. Varys would be the owner of the club. Because I know Conleth Hill would be amazing at that. And we'd all come in and do little things. Last year, we did the Coldplay musical. I thought that was the finest moment we had.
I hate you now.
Yeah, you're welcome.
worst.
Basically,
There are a lot of good ideas for spin-offs.
saying no.
That's
Not a good one.
no.
No. I think it kind of ruins the tone of the show if it's a cabaret.
A little bit, actually. Well, the thing is,
But you've got to know Varys is probably a good singer.
yeah, I think that he could probably move. I mean, Littlefinger would probably be good too. The world is so big. I mean, you could set stories anywhere pretty much and come up with an interesting story, which I think some other famous worlds that I know, like I understand some people are gigantic fans of Lord of the Rings. I know there are stories set in other areas, but I don't find the world to be nearly as interesting as this. And I think that you could do a lot of spin-offs. I don't think that George R.R. Martin is the type of author to just say, have at it, do whatever you want. But if he's interested, I would be interested in most spin-offs, but not that one.
Okay, what about one where Jaime and Brienne are just roommates?
That would be cool. Look, I think Jaime and Bronn like
Or
wandering
adventures.
around, like
Jaime and Bronn adventures.
the early travels
featuring their wacky neighbor.
maybe.
Making it
I
too
think.
stupid.
Look, I think a story leading up to the doom of Valyria would be an incredibly interesting story.
You're right.
The building of the wall. There's a lot of stuff that they could do.
Or Dunk and Egg, which seems the most likely,
Yeah.
if anything.
Or-
if anything.
The initial conquest of Westeros. That would be awesome too.
The people coming over, the Andals from Andalasia, is it?
I guess so.
The Andal
Free Cities,
area.
yeah.
It's on the
exactly.
Essos side.
No,
Anyway,
there's a lot of stories that you
there's
could
a
set
lot
there.
of rich stories that could come out, and they're still going to come out in the next 2 shortened seasons. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think signs are pointing towards Jaime becoming the Queen Slayer. What say you, audience? Let us know what you think below. Where are we going with this in Game of Thrones? And please like and subscribe for more.